There's a hormone inside your body right now that is quietly aging you faster than anything else you can measure. You cannot feel it directly. You cannot see it. Most routine blood tests do not capture it accurately. And yet, decade after decade, this single hormone has been linked in research to accelerated brain shrinkage, weakened immune function, faster cellular aging, deeper memory loss, and even a measurable shortening of life itself. If you're a man over 50, this hormone is almost certainly running too high in your body right now. And until you understand what it's doing, every other effort you make to stay sharp, strong, and energetic is fighting an uphill battle. The hormone is cortisol. You have probably heard of cortisol. You know it's a stress hormone. But what most men over 50 have never been told is that cortisol does not just respond to stress. In aging bodies, it begins to operate on its own logic. It rises. It stays high. It stops shutting off the way it should. And in doing so, it accelerates the aging of every organ in your body simultaneously. This is why researchers have come to call cortisol the invisible aging hormone. You cannot feel it climbing, but you live with the consequences every single day. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how cortisol accelerates aging through 3 specific biological pathways. You'll know the 3 signs that yours is already too high. And you'll know the practical protocol researchers have identified for bringing it back into balance. Stay with me until sign number 3. That's the one almost every man over 50 has experienced. And it has nothing to do with the things most men blame it on. First, let's understand what cortisol actually is. Cortisol is produced by your adrenal glands, the same glands that produce DHEA, which I covered in detail in a previous video. In a healthy younger man, cortisol follows a precise daily rhythm. It rises sharply in the morning to give you energy. It tapers throughout the day, and it drops to its lowest point at night so you can sleep. This rhythm is called the diurnal cortisol curve. It is one of the most fundamental hormonal patterns in human biology. After 50, this curve begins to flatten. In men under chronic stress, sleep disruption, or metabolic imbalance, cortisol stops dropping at night the way it should. It stays mildly elevated for hours when it should be near zero. And over years, this chronically elevated cortisol exposure produces a specific kind of cellular damage that researchers now consider one of the most powerful drivers of accelerated aging in older adults. Let me walk you through exactly how this damage happens. Damage pathway number 1. Cortisol shortens your telomeres. This is one of the most important discoveries in aging research in the last 20 years. At the end of every chromosome in your body sits a tiny protective cap called a telomere. Telomeres get shorter every time a cell divides. When they become too short, the cell can no longer divide properly. It either becomes inactive or dies. The length of your telomeres is one of the most accurate biological markers of how old your cells actually are. Groundbreaking research from Dr. Alyssa Epel and Nobel laureate Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn at the University of California, San Francisco, has documented that people under chronic stress have measurably shorter telomeres than people of the same chronological age who are not under chronic stress. The mechanism, in significant part, is cortisol. When cortisol is chronically elevated, it suppresses an enzyme called telomerase that helps maintain telomere length. Over years, this accelerates telomere shortening, which accelerates cellular aging. In other words, stress doesn't just make you feel older. At the cellular level, it actually makes you older. Damage pathway number 2. Cortisol shrinks your brain. Specifically, it damages the hippocampus, the brain region responsible for memory, learning, and emotional regulation. The hippocampus has an unusually high concentration of cortisol receptors. When cortisol is elevated for extended periods, those receptors are overstimulated. Neurons in the hippocampus retract their connections. Some die. The region shrinks. Research from Stanford University and elsewhere, including the work of Dr. Robert Sapolsky, has documented this hippocampal shrinkage in older adults under chronic stress, and the effect is measurable using MRI imaging. This is one of the deeper reasons that the brain shrinkage I discussed in my earlier video accelerates so dramatically after 60. It is not just aging, it is cumulative cortisol damage. The men who experience early memory issues, slower thinking, and difficulty recalling names in their 50s and 60s are often men with chronically elevated cortisol. Their brain is not failing, it is being silently inflamed. Damage pathway number 3, the one most men have never heard about. Cortisol suppresses your immune system. In short bursts, cortisol is anti-inflammatory and helpful. In chronic, low-grade elevation, cortisol does something different. It suppresses key immune cells, particularly the T cells responsible for fighting infection and clearing damaged tissue. This is why men under chronic stress get sick more often. Their wounds heal slower. They take longer to recover from minor illnesses. Their immune system is being held down by their own cortisol. Research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences and other journals has linked chronic cortisol elevation in older adults to increased risk of infection, slower wound healing, and even higher rates of certain cancers. This is also why men over 50 with high cortisol often experience reactivation of dormant viruses, cold sores, shingles, recurring illnesses they thought were behind them. Their immune surveillance is no longer keeping these viruses suppressed the way it used to. Most men have no idea this is happening. They assume getting sick more often is just part of aging. It usually isn't. It is a measurable hormonal signal. Now, here are the 3 signs your cortisol is too high. Sign 1. You feel wired and tired at the same time. This is one of the most distinctive hallmarks of cortisol dysregulation. You are exhausted, genuinely tired, but you cannot relax. Your mind won't slow down. You can't fall asleep when you go to bed, or if you do, you wake up at 3 a.m. with your heart racing. In a normal cortisol pattern, exhaustion leads to rest. In a dysregulated cortisol pattern, your nervous system stays in alarm mode even when your body is depleted. You're running on fumes, but the engine won't turn off. Sign 2. Belly fat that won't shift no matter what you do. I covered this in detail in my video on belly fat after 60. Visceral fat, the deep, dangerous belly fat, has roughly 4 times more cortisol receptors than fat anywhere else on your body. When cortisol is elevated, your belly fat is the first place to grow and the last place to shrink. If your arms, face, and legs lose weight but your stomach stays the same, your cortisol is almost certainly too high. Sign 3. The one most men have never connected to a hormone. You catch colds easily. You heal slowly. You get sick more often than you used to. This is the immune suppression we discussed. Most men attribute it to aging in general, to being run down, to stress in a vague sense. But the specific mechanism is cortisol suppressing immune cells. If you've noticed that cuts take longer to heal, that you bounce back from illness more slowly than you used to, or that you keep catching whatever is going around the office, your cortisol is sending a clear signal. If you recognize yourself in 2 or more of these signs, your cortisol is worth measuring. Here's what to do. There is no single supplement that lowers cortisol reliably. There is no magic intervention, but there is a clear protocol supported by research that has been shown to bring cortisol back toward a healthier rhythm in older men. Move 1. Get tested properly. A standard morning cortisol blood test only captures 1 moment in time. The more revealing test is a 4-point salivary cortisol test, which measures cortisol at 4 different times throughout the day: morning, midday, afternoon, and night. This shows you whether your daily curve is healthy or flattened. Ask your doctor about this test if you suspect chronic cortisol issues. Move 2. Protect the evening cortisol drop. Cortisol is meant to be near 0 at night. Anything that elevates it in the evening damages your sleep, which damages your cortisol the next day, which compounds. 3 specific evening habits matter most. No alcohol within 3 hours of bed. Alcohol is one of the most powerful evening cortisol disruptors. No work emails or stressful screens after 9 p.m. The nervous system reads this as ongoing threat. Last meal at least 3 hours before sleep. Late eating elevates cortisol overnight. Move 3. Build a daily cortisol recovery routine. Notice I said recovery, not reduction. You cannot eliminate stress from your life, but you can build deliberate windows of nervous system recovery into your day. 20 minutes of brisk walking outdoors, 10 minutes of slow breathing in the evening, sunlight in the first hour after waking, which I covered in detail in my video on what strong 70-year-olds do in their first hour. These are not optional. They are the maintenance routine for your cortisol system. Men who build these into their daily lives consistently show measurable improvements in cortisol patterns within weeks. Not by trying harder, by giving the system more chances to reset. Here's what I want you to take from this video. You cannot feel cortisol rising. You cannot feel telomeres shortening. You cannot feel your hippocampus inflaming. You cannot feel your immune cells being suppressed. But all of it is happening, in real time, in millions of men over 50 right now, quietly, without warning. And it is one of the most powerful determinants of how fast you will age over the next 20 years. The men who age slowest are not the men with the most genetic luck. They are the men whose cortisol stayed in rhythm, who slept well, who recovered well, who built habits that kept their nervous system from getting stuck in alarm mode. The invisible aging hormone is not your enemy. Cortisol is essential. You cannot live without it. But you can protect yourself from the version of cortisol that is running unchecked inside most American men over 50. The first step is knowing it's there. The second step is measuring it. The third step is rebuilding the rhythm. If this video helped you, share it with another man over 50 who has been carrying invisible stress for years. Most men have never been told that their tiredness, their belly fat, and their slow recovery from illness are all telling the same story. Sharing this with one person you care about could give them the framework to start untangling it. And please, always consult a qualified physician about persistent symptoms or before making major changes if you have a diagnosed condition. What we covered today is research-based education, not personalized medical advice. In the next video, I'm going to take you into one of the most surprising hormonal shifts happening in men over 60, a shift most men would never imagine. The quiet rise of a hormone you've always associated with women. By the time many American men are 65, their levels of this hormone are higher than they should be, higher than at any point earlier in their lives. And the symptoms it causes are often blamed on age, weight, or testosterone deficiency, when the real driver is something else entirely. If you want to understand your body better as you age, subscribe. Because the most powerful thing a man over 50 can do is not push harder, it's understand deeper. I'll see you in